the outset, let me thank AMOX, Dr. Somvanshi Madam, Dr. Pranjal, and all the organizing committee to have invited me here to talk on really different topics. So yesterday in the PG workshop, I discussed how a postgraduate should be or do things in their 3 years, which we labeled as, my talk was Sand Ki Aankh. Then we had a very amazing session just now, a medico-legal session on Mamla Adalat Mein. And now the third thing which we are going to do or discuss now is laparoscopy in pregnancy, which is followed by a T20 session. So I'm very happy that in 2 days I have been a part of very different things at AMOX. So thank you so much. I pray to Lord Ganesha to sail me through this presentation. God has been very kind to me. These are the 3 parts of my everyday practice: the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good part of my practice is doing laparoscopy, which we do 3D and quite extensive work. The bad part of the practice is obstetrics, because it can go wrong at any point of time, and a simple patient who's in labor suddenly develops PPH and we have to do stepwise devascularization or obstetric hysterectomy. And the ugly part is medico-legal. So I am a combination of all 3, and fortunate to be the chairperson now. So heartfelt gratitude. I have taken over as chairperson of Ethics and Medical Legal Committee of FOXI. An important thing which I want to discuss with you all is maybe next week we are going to release a toll-free medical legal helpline number, on which medical legal consultation will be available 24 hours to all FOXI members. So I will share the number. It will be there on the FOXI website. Even 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock at night you have a problem, make a call on that number. We are 14 people. We have divided 1 day, so it comes to 2 days per month, 24 hours. So 2 ring goes, don't keep the phone down. The 3rd ring will go to the person who's in charge on that day. So that will be very good for dissemination of whatever medical legal problems you have then and there. Again, thank you for calling me here. Laparoscopy in pregnancy, something different. So when we used to do this and we used to laugh, everybody used to laugh. थोड़ा sound बढ़ाएंगे सर, sound. एक तो प्रेगनेंसी बहुत कम रहती है, ऊपर से जो प्रेगनेंसी रहती है, अभी एंडोस्कोपी सर्जन्स को उसमें भी लैप्रोस्कोपी करना है, यानी हाइट. सर वीडियो नहीं दिख रहा, देख लो. Endoscopic surgeons have now gone to a limit where they don't even want to spare the pregnant ladies, and they start putting trocars right, left and center. But that is not the correct interpretation. We actually started off by doing emergency laparoscopic appendicectomies for patients who were pregnant, because at that point of time the surgeons were not sure about how to do a laparoscopy, and the patient had acute appendicitis, so she had to be operated. So that is how we started doing laparoscopies in pregnancy, to be very truthful. Later on, so many other indications came up. That is why I showed this one clip, which is actually a very old clip, because if you see in this clip, I am dissecting the appendicular artery with bipolar and just cutting it and then tying, so putting an intracorporeal knot. Now people have loops. So now appendix has become a 5-minute surgery, because they put in a loop, they tighten the loop and then they cut. So this is a very extremely old video which is showing this. And then we have lot of actual indications where laparoscopy is needed in pregnancy. So excision of rudimentary horn, heterotopic pregnancy, ectopic pregnancy, torsion, ovarian tumor, benign tumors, adnexal masses, malignant masses, and so on and so forth. My first contention here is that the first management of any adnexal mass in pregnancy is always conservative, and it is only as an alternative where no other conservative treatment will work, or the patient has a torsion wherein there is a chance that we may lose the ovary, then and then only we put in a scope and do a laparoscopy. So a patient who is pregnant and has some 4-5 centimeter simple cyst without a problem, we should not advocate laparoscopy because of inherent risks of anesthesia and surgery in pregnancy. And the important view was there could be injury to the uterus, injury to the uterine artery, and fetal malperfusion due to pneumoperitoneum. And these are some risks which still remain. So again, I will reiterate the fact that laparoscopy in pregnancy is only done when it is the only option left, and not as a first choice for it. And you have to put your mind over matter. So, if you want to do this kind of surgery, you have to really train yourself very well. And not only yourself, but your team, your anesthetist, and everything should be, in proper place before contemplating these surgeries. Obviously, you have different advantages of laparoscopy. I need not tell you. Fewer incidences of hernias, smaller scars, early immobilization, good recovery, and there is very little or no fetal depression, and GI activity comes on faster. So I do not want to impress more. Laparoscopy is definitely beneficial in this part. For this diagnosis. Now safety, yes. So if you see this, there are a lot of studies. They studied some 2181 laparoscopies compared to 1522 laparotomies, which were prior to 20 weeks, and they found that there is no IUGR, no abortion, nothing. So properly done a laparoscopy in pregnancy is not dangerous to the mother, it is not dangerous to the baby. But again, I will put a properly done scopy, and that entails the entire gamut of things around it. When do you do a scopy? There is no upper limit. You can always do a scopy at any gestational age, but as the gestational age goes on increasing, the scopy becomes more and more difficult because you do not have space there. So a second trimester or early second trimester scopy is the safest and the best to do in case you have to do it, but there is no upper limit. Ultrasound is supposed to be the diagnostic modality before contemplating this scopy. Now with Dopplers, we can also find out whether there is partial torsion, complete torsion, and then we can go ahead. And obviously MRI scores way better than CT scan. So if you are unsure about your diagnosis on an ultrasound, the next diagnostic tool should be an MRI. Then there are safety tips. So Society of American Gastrointestinal and Endoscopic Surgeons, SAGE, in 2008 and 2011 have given some safety tips, and that we need to follow. Avoid monopolar cautery as far as possible, and use bipolar, that is what they said, so that minimizes the acidosis which the fetus undergoes. Prophylactic tocolysis and glucocorticoids are not required unless you are doing a laparoscopic cervical cerclage, where maybe prophylactic tocolytics will work, and if you are contemplating an early delivery, then glucocorticoids. But routinely for all the patients, they are not required. Obviously, you have to give good pre-medication, anxiolytics, antiemetics, H2 receptor antagonists, so on and so forth. NBM is a must. No enema, antibiotics 1 hour prior to the scopy. Written informed consent is most important, and conversion to laparotomy may be needed. This is also extremely important. DVT prophylaxis you have to give in pregnancy, because pregnancy itself is a issue where you have prothrombotic situation. Then you are giving anesthesia, then there's immobilization. So all add to DVT. All informed consent explaining complications, I have already told. Nasogastric intubation has to be done. So even if it is a scopy done for in the second trimester, where you do not see that the stomach will come in between, but there is an inherent risk of aspiration, Mendelssohn syndrome. So you have to do a nasogastric intubation. Dorsal lithotomy position is preferred. Fluid management is of utmost importance, because under no circumstances can you have hypotension. Hypotension will affect placental perfusion, and that will be a big problem. Open Hassan's trocar method technique is important, that is to be used, and all specimens need to be retrieved through endobag. Pneumoperitoneum, the pressure should be kept less than 12, and we need not increase it. Capnography is a must to monitor it. Versa step trocars or plastic trocars would be preferred. Small laparoscope 3 or 5 millimeters should be preferred, and if you require a bowel retractor fan, which is a 5 mm instrument, should also be used. Now, where do you put your ports? The port placement, if less than 18 weeks of size, you can put a supraumbilical or subumbilical port. If it's more than 18 weeks, then initial trocar should be at least 10 centimeter or 4 finger breadths above the area of the fundus. So then you are safe limit, you are going above, and chances of damage to the uterus will be minimized. Now, this is the contemporary way how we put our trocars, but this is the modified way how we put trocars. So now there is a 18 weeks pregnancy, and if you see, I have put my trocars very laterally and very high up, so that there is no injury at all to the uterus. Fetal assessment with handheld Doppler should be done. If maternal acidosis is suspected, you should hyperventilate the mother. Placental blood flow and fetal oxygenation is of utmost importance. So monitoring is an important tool. Post-operatively, NSAIDs should be avoided, especially after 32 weeks. Painkillers, opioids can be given. A CTG done, and this is of medico-legal significance. So if you've done a CTG after the procedure is over and the CTG is normal, that clearly indicates that no intraoperative insult occurred to the baby. Complications and risks are there. Issue of abortion, IUGR, complications are related to anesthesia. There are so many of them, but trust me, over a period of time, with good anesthesia, proper positioning, counseling, and a good quick procedure, I have not seen any complications in doing laparoscopy in a pregnant lady. Although so many of the complications are listed there. This we have seen. Now we'll come to the whole crux about how. अरे हाँ पण video नहीं चालू है sir. So we'll just see few videos where laparoscopy really helped the patient. Malls for 5,000 rupees you get in 50 rupees in Tulsi Bagh. So I always say that this is my Tulsi Bagh laptop because it plays everywhere and anywhere. So I'm okay. No, it's not playing, sir. So when you are contemplating doing a laparoscopy in pregnancy, this is how the heart of the patient beats, and your heart beats even faster, I think, because you are doing that laparoscopy. This is a laparoscopy for a big dermoid cyst. There you can see the pregnant uterus, and it's a huge dermoid cyst in pregnancy. Now, why did we operate this? Because the patient kept on having recurrent pain, and the problem was that ultrasound, 50% of the people said there is a twist, and 50% said there is no torsion. Now we were in a dilemma what is to be done, and the patient was around 10 weeks pregnant. So see, what we are doing is, I have put the trocar, primary trocar, way above the uterus, and we are using bipolar energy. And the procedure is that you take out, you do a laparoscopic ovarian cystectomy, put everything in the endo bag and retrieve it. And very slowly and steadily we have to dissect, because we have to remember that there is increased vascularity during pregnancy. So chances of bleeding is very high. There is no endo bag used here, but ideal situation you need to put everything in the endo bag and remove. So this is a case of dermoid with pregnancy, and the patient was okay afterwards, no problem, and she delivered, she had a vaginal birth. So all this was done for this patient. Then we have this. Now this is a non-communicating horn, and the non-communicating horn has pregnancy in it. So that's the non-communicating horn there. There's a normal uterus on one side. This horn is not communicating with the cervix. So from where do the sperms, this is the non-communicating horn, this is the communicating part of the uterus, and there's pregnancy in this. So that means the sperms have traveled from the cervix through the uterus, through the tube on this side, transmigrated through the peritoneum, and went into the ampulla of this sided tube and caused pregnancy, which got implanted there. So that is transmigration. These surgeries are also not very difficult to do, because now the issue is this is a heterotopic pregnancy. So you have pregnancy here and you have pregnancy here. Now the issue is you cannot manipulate the uterus much, because you want to save. And all these types of cases and pregnancies come because of our dear IVF friends. Now if you're contemplating IVF for this patient, please note that you need to remove that horn first, doing an endoscopy, because IVF, you make the environment in the pelvis so pregnancy friendly that they get pregnancy gets implanted anywhere and everywhere. You give progesterone and HCG, so this is something which comes up. And now this is not very difficult, because you have to just excise and take care that the other part of the horn where there is actually good pregnancy does not suffer. Now this is another similar issue where there is heterotopic pregnancy. But now what has happened is that this is a normal uterus here which has the normal pregnancy inside, and there is an ectopic pregnancy on the tube which is attached to the non-communicating horn. So initially there was a pregnancy in the non-communicating horn. Now there is a pregnancy in the tube which is attached to the non-communicating horn. Again, you have to not manipulate the uterus much. Remove this horn completely from here and remove that tube, and that does the trick for the patient. Again, we do not use monopolar. All that we do is use bipolar energy, and we excise everything and remove. I will finish, ma'am. 2 more videos and I'll finish. मेरे को इन्होंने time भी बहुत लगाया. Okay, all right. So now this is very common. So this is around 14 weeks pregnant uterus, and then you have a completely twisted adnexa. The report, ultrasound report showed it's a twisted ovarian cyst. On the contrary, it was not a twisted ovarian cyst. It was a par ovarian cyst, which grew beyond, which came out of the pelvis, and then it had a twist in it. So what we did was we untwisted the entire thing, removed the par ovarian cyst, and that was the end of the procedure. The ovary was good. So now here, although the ovary appears, it shows some necrotic patches. Once you untwist it and remove, no problem at all. It becomes very good. So it's a par ovarian cyst here which has got twisted. Okay, then what do you do once you've removed it? Once you've removed a cyst in the ovary with pregnancy, minimal use of cautery is something which I told you. So we tend to suture the ovary. So what we do herein is we put a stitch or we suture the ovary. Either it is contralateral, ipsilateral suturing, whatever we call it, a box suture. And once you suture the ovary, what you are achieving is you are closing all the part of the ovary which can have adhesions outside. So put in 1 or 2 sutures and close the ovary, and that is the end of the procedure there. Okay, this I have shown you. Again, here we have something different. Here we have an ovarian cyst which has ruptured. So you have lot of times pregnancy with ovarian cyst which has ruptured and there is hemoperitoneum inside. Now if there is hemoperitoneum inside, you have to operate and do a cystectomy and remove the cyst. And this is how we do exactly the same procedure. Only thing is expect a little bit more of hemorrhage. I'll just show last one video and I'll stop, ma'am. And this is very interesting video, for a simple reason that here the patient had recurrent pain and nobody knew why that patient is having pain, because ultrasound report never showed any ovarian cyst, no adnexal mass, nothing, and a 14 to 16 weeks uterus. So we had to put in a scope to find out why they, and she was having severe pain. So we are giving Voveron, all injections, even sedatives at times, but the pain is not going. Now what happened once we put the scope inside and I tried to find out where the adnexa is, suddenly we find there is a twist there. And this twist, because it got compressed between the growing uterus and the sacrum in the pouch of Douglas. That is why she was having all the pain. So all we did was remove that ovary from outside. It showed a simple cyst, puncture it and put the ovary back in the pouch of Douglas again. Why? If you keep the ovary there only, it will twist again. We want to take the advantage of the pressure between the uterus and the sacrum. So we untwisted it, we just put a puncture there and we put the ovary again in place and it solved the issue completely. So, there are so many situations which will come to us for management like this during pregnancy, and we have to, follow all the guidelines which I just discussed with you. Last 2 slides, ma'am, because the videos didn't play, I had to rush through all this. We are almost done. Point is that if you take care of all these and if you follow the guidelines, there is no problem. You can very well do a good laparoscopy in pregnancy. Laparoscopic treatment has similar benefits to pregnant, non-pregnant. It is better than laparotomy. Again, I am telling you, weigh the risks of the laparoscopy, discuss with the patient. Each and every case where you have an adnexal mass is not a case for laparoscopy, only if it is the only last option left, or to save the ovary, or to save the life of the patient, or to where you have an heterotopic pregnancy with an ectopic inside where you have to do. Laparoscopy can be safely performed during any trimester of pregnancy when it is indicated. I don't know if this plays. This is the last video which I wanted to show, and I will show it through this. Because it conveys a very important message. Sir, volume बढ़ा दो. Volume बढ़ाओ sir. Uncle, volume बढ़ाओ. Uncle जी, माय बाप, volume बढ़ाओ.
जिनके लिए तुम काम करते हो, उन्हें ना सुनने की आदत नहीं है, और तुमने तो उन्हें भी काम कहना सीख लिया है. इस दुनिया में तरक्की करने के लिए ना बोलना बहुत जरूरी है कभी.
सो रिमेंबर, इस दुनिया में अगर अच्छा प्रैक्टिस करना है तो गलत चीज़ों को ना बोलना बहुत ज़रूरी है. थैंक यू सो मच फॉर योर पेशेंस.